In this video, we're going to play around with some buttons. It's kind of like a challenge, but it's also a tutorial. So basically what I want to do is I want to create some buttons in HTML and CSS, and I want to use CSS3 to make them behave and look cool, kind of modern, and make it do things that you wouldn't normally be able to do with just plain HTML and just CSS 2.1. So yeah, we're going to play around. We're going to create some buttons here, and it's going to be cool. So create buttons.html, and same deal as always, basic structure, modify your title, and give it an H1 with CSS3 fancy buttons, and 2 A tags with the class of button. And the second one, we'll say alt button, because we're going to, in the class as well, because we want to be able to give this similar styles as the first one, but have an alternative styling that we could play around with. First one says click me, second says no click me. And what we're going to do here is select the button class in our CSS, and let's get styling. So we're going to say display inline block. We want them to be side by side, but also behave kind of like a block level element where we can play with the width and all that sort of stuff. Okay, background. It's FC3, kind of the color, the theme of this course so far, FC3. And we're going to make the color white. And we're going to give some padding. We're going to say 10 on top and bottom, 20 on the left and right. And we're going to do some margin. We're going to say 10 on the top and bottom and on the left and right. And then we're going to get text decoration, none. We don't want any underline in there. So far, the buttons are kind of coming together. They look pretty cool. Very simple. But we want to make it even better. So let's add some CSS3 here. Let's, under our background, let's add another background. And the reason why we do that is because we're going to add a linear gradient. And some browsers don't have the ability to render linear gradients, so it will fall back to the predefined style of just background FC3. So we're going to say linear gradient. And the first color will be FC3, second will be F9-1. And so you can see here we got a bit of a gradient. It's kind of looking a little more three-dimensional. Okay, and now what we want to do is we want to give it we want to give a border. Solid 1 pixel. Let's go for DDD. See what that looks like. See if it looks good. It's too subtle. We need to go darker. Let's go 999. Whoops. And there we go. That's a bit better there. It looks okay. Now we want to add a border radius. So border radius, and we'll say 5 pixels. And there we go. We got 5 pixel border radius. And let's do some text shadow there. We need a bit of contrast between the background and the text color there. So we're going to say text shadow. And we're going to say 0 pixels, 1 pixel, and 333. And we're going to give it a bit of a blur. So let's say, I don't know, 5 pixels. Let's do less, 3. And let's make the color an RGBA. RGBA 0.6. And less blur, let's go 2 pixels. And that's looking pretty good so far. It's kind of popping out there. Now what we want to do is we want to, on the hover, make it do a few different things. So we're going to select the button and then hover. And what we'll do now is on hover, we'll just modify a few things here to make it stand out when we hover over these buttons. So let's say we're going to say the border is going to get darker, solid. Oh, let's just do the color. Border color. And we'll say 333. That's going to be darker. And let's say the text shadow will also change to 0, 1 pixel, 2 pixels, and then RGBA. And we'll do the same, 0, 0, 0, and then 0.9. So it's going to become a little less transparent on the hover. And then what we'll do is we'll modify that, that background. So we need a backup here. So let's go F9-1. So let's see what we got so far. So when you hover, you could see the background color changes to a solid color. The border is a bit darker and the text shadow is darker. I don't like how dark the border is, so we'll just change that color to something a little more subtle, like 888. And that's better. And now what we'll do is we'll actually add a gradient in there because we can. The first style is there simply for backup for older browsers. And so we'll just let's go. We'll go FA3 and F. Actually, let's do the same colors, but we'll go like this. We'll go FC3 and then F91. But what we'll do is we'll say to top, and that should flip the gradient. There you go. So it looks like you're moving the button, you're pressing the button in, because the light kind of casts a different kind of shadow on the button, so to speak. So it kind of gives a little bit of like a pressed inward effect. What we could also do is we could change the position on active. So let's say button active. So when we've clicked the button down, we'll say position relative and then top 1 pixel and leave it at that for now. And then watch this. When you click it, the button moves down just so subtly when you click it. So it has a cool little effect when you do that. So let's try a little animation here. Let's go. We'll add our keyframe just at the top here. We'll say keyframes. And what we're going to do is we're going to say from and to. And at the very beginning of the animation, let's do the padding. We'll say padding. We're going to say 10 pixels and 20 pixels. To padding. And we'll say 15 pixels to 30 pixels. And now we need to go down to our button. And on hover, we will say animation name. Oh, and we forgot to add a name to our keyframes up here. We'll say button animation. This will be button animation. And animation duration, let's say it's going to last 4 seconds. And let's check it out. So you could see slowly that button, maybe a little too slow. What if we made that last 1 second? There we go. But it jumps back in, so I don't want it to do that. I want it to stop at the last frame. You just use the animation fill mode, and you just say forwards. And that should stop it at the last frame. So let's just double check. There you go. And now let's do something else here. Let's go back up to our keyframes and let's make the text size. Let's say font size inherit. So that's the default font size of whatever it is. And then to font size, let's go for 24 pixels. So now let's see what happens. See how it kind of grows with it. There you go. Both buttons should do that. And now because we have a second class here, we could just style that just a little bit differently, just for fun. We'll say Alt button, and we could just say something like background. Let's go radial gradient, and we'll say the same deal, FC3 to F91, and that should give us a cool radial gradient. And then when we hover, we're just going to flip those colors around. It'll be the hover pseudo class, and then we'll just say background radial gradient, and we'll just say F91 to FC3. And now those will just flip on hover, like so. And if I wanted that animation to be a little quicker, we could do something like 0.5 5 seconds, so it'll be quicker. Like that. Cool. So it's just a very simple example of using CSS3 to play around with some buttons. Obviously, you could do whatever you want, and you could whatever works best for your design and whatever you think looks best, whatever works best, as long as you're not getting in the way of usability. It's fair game.